Marcus Reed didn't cancel meetings. Not for governors, not for donors, not for the kind of people who said "sir" like a handshake. But the calendar ping on his phone, Kiera lunch 12:10, wasn't his. His 12-year-old daughter had added it herself. A reminder disguised as hope. He stopped mid-email, closed the laptop, and packed a brown paper bag with her favorites: turkey, kettle chips, a mango smoothie that tastes like summer, and a single sunflower, her mother's flower. 2 years since the accident, and Kiera had learned to say, "I'm fine," with a brave little smile that never reached her eyes. Today he would show up. Ashford Hills Prep rose like a stone mansion, fountain glittering, hedges surgical, banners preaching excellence. Character. Community. The gate guard asked, "Purpose?" Like Marcus needed a reason to love his child. Inside, the hallways were a museum of old money, portraits of winners who'd never been told no. He followed the hum of voices to the cafeteria, gripped the lunch bag, took a breath, and pushed the doors open. 2 worlds shared one room. Center stage, round tables with plush chairs, sunlight, laughter, a fruit bar under a sign that read Ashford Family Fund. To the left by the service door, long wooden benches under buzzing fluorescents, the air damp and tired. There, in the shadowed corner, sat the only kids who looked like Kiera. And Kiera was there, shoulders small, tray tight in her hands. Kiera Reed. A woman in a perfect cardigan and sharper smile cut the room in half with her voice. Heels like metronomes on tile. She marched up, grabbed Kiera's wrist. "You know the rules. Premium tables are for contributing families." "My section," Kiera whispered. "Don't play innocent. Equity students sit in community seating." Kiera's tray slipped, cracked open, juice erupting like a flare. Laughter. Phones up. A boy leaned back to enjoy the show. A teacher glanced over, then away. Marcus's knuckles whitened on the bag. He didn't lunch. Not yet. Institutions spin anger into guilt. So he lifted his phone and hit record. The woman, Mrs. Daly, as he'd learned, pointed to the corner. "Go sit where you belong." A line on the wall made it policy. "Premium seating priority. Equity program students please use designated area." A Latino boy approached the water station. Daly snapped, "Not for you." Minutes later, a white student filled his bottle, unbothered. A black girl tried to use the front trash bins. A staffer smiled tightly and redirected her to the back. This wasn't chaos. It was choreography. Marcus crossed the room, set a hand on Kiera's shoulder. Her eyes flashed relief, then panic. "Dad, not here," she breathed. "Baby, how long?" Marcus asked. Silence. Her answer. Mrs. Daly arrived, folded arms. "You're disrupting lunch. I'm asking why my child is segregated." "Donors fund this place," she said, louder for the audience. "Marketing needs diversity. Privileges require contribution. My daughter is not a charity case." Mrs. Daly laughed. "Paid by who?" "You." Principal Graham Wexler materialized, all polished disapproval. "Sir, you can schedule a meeting. You may not record. You need to leave." "I have 20 minutes of evidence," Marcus said, phone steady. "Security," Wexler said. 2 large guards approached. Kiera clutched Marcus's sleeve, trembling. "Please, Dad," she whispered. "They'll make it worse." Marcus tasted metal. He kept his voice even. "You're calling me a threat while your staff assaults children. You people always make everything a scene," Daly muttered, satisfied. The guards gripped Marcus's arms, firm, performative. The room leaned in. Phones caught angles. At the door, Wexler blocked Kiera. "Return to your seat." "She's my daughter," Marcus said. "During school hours, she's our responsibility." Kiera's eyes pleaded. The sunflower in the bag crinkled under his fist. "Listen to me," Marcus called softly. "Go back inside. Keep your head up. Give me 1 hour." The lock clicked behind her. Sun hammered Marcus's face. The guards escorted him to the lot like a problem solved. When they released him, he sat in his car, breath unsteady, and stared at the recording timer, 23:41. Enough. He made 3 calls. Not favors, alarms. Civil rights response. Immediate. "I have video of organized segregation and physical harassment of minors at Ashford Hills." Send. Forward. Share. His hands shook, not from fear, but from the precision of what came next. Because Mrs. Daly had been wrong about the man in the cheap suit. Marcus Reed wasn't powerless. He'd built a life dismantling polished cruelty. They just dragged his daughter into it. He drove 1 block, parked with a clear view of the entrance, and set the phone to upload. In the passenger seat, the sunflower stared up at him like a promise he hadn't kept. He whispered to the empty car, to the girl behind the locked door, to every child in the corner who'd learned to be small. "I'm coming, baby." And for the first time that day, Marcus smiled, thin, dangerous, certain, because he heard it in the distance already, the sound of consequences. Marcus Reed waited in his car outside Ashford Hills, the engine off, his hands resting on the steering wheel like he was afraid of what they might do if he let them move. His phone sat on the dashboard, recordings saved, uploaded, duplicated in 3 cloud drives, and an encrypted server. He wasn't just a father anymore. He was evidence in motion. He could still hear Kiera's voice in his head. "Please, Dad, don't. They'll make it worse." It wasn't just fear. It was surrender, the kind kids learn when adults in power make them feel small long enough. Marcus clenched his jaw. "Not my daughter. Not anymore." He looked down at the name on his phone, Commissioner Owens. Old friend. Federal contact. The kind of man who didn't pick up unless something was burning. 10 minutes ago, Marcus had sent the footage with one message. Racial segregation. Federal funding violation. Immediate response needed. Now, the call came back. "Marcus." Owens's voice came through tight, serious. "I just watched the footage. It's bad. It's worse in person," Marcus replied. "There are at least 20 witnesses, students, staff, administrators, all complicit." Owens exhaled hard. "Give me an hour. I'm pulling a team from the Civil Rights Division. You're sure this school takes federal funds?" "Full Title IV assistance, diversity grants, and tech modernization money," Marcus said. 12 million last fiscal year. "Then it's ours." Owens's tone shifted, professional now. "Sit tight. I'll notify the DOJ and the press pool. Do not re-enter that building." Marcus's lips curved in something that wasn't quite a smile. Wasn't planning to. He ended the call and stared at the building across the street. Kids were still moving through the hallways. Normal. Happy. Oblivious. He wondered how many of them saw what happened and thought it was normal. How many thought Mrs. Daly's cruelty was just rules? Inside, Kiera sat in that corner again, wiping her face, pretending to eat the lunch that had been destroyed. Her fingers still throbbed from where Daly had grabbed her. She glanced at the cafeteria doors every few seconds, hoping to see her father, hoping he hadn't been arrested, hoping she hadn't made it worse. Mrs. Daly paced the front of the cafeteria, talking to Principal Wexler. "We can't let this go unpunished," she said. "He was recording staff. That's a violation." Wexler nodded. "I'll contact legal. We'll file a no trespass order. As for the girl, disciplinary review. Family disruption of learning environment." "Good," Daly said, satisfied. "That'll remind the others to stay in their place." From the far corner, Kiera heard every word. She looked at her friends, Miguel, Destiny, and Aaron, who sat frozen beside her. "They're going to expel me," she whispered. Miguel shook his head. "They can't. You didn't do anything." "They can," Destiny said quietly. "They can do anything." Outside, the air changed. Sirens. Low at first, then multiplying. A black helicopter circled once above the athletic field. Teachers near the window frowned, confused. Wexler stepped out of the cafeteria to see what was happening, and froze. SUVs rolled into the parking lot, doors flying open. Agents in suits and tactical vests stepped out, badges flashing gold under the noon sun. The letters FBI and DOJ glinted like judgment. "Principal Wexler," a voice called through a megaphone. "Federal agents. We need immediate access to your administrative offices." Students pressed to the windows. Someone whispered, "Is this a drill?" Inside the cafeteria, Mrs. Daly's confidence cracked. What is this?" A student shouted. "Yo, the feds are here." Marcus stepped out of his car and started walking toward the main doors. Calm, straight-backed. Every camera turned toward him as the agents surrounded the entrance. Mrs. Daly saw him through the glass and went pale. "You," she whispered. "You called them." Marcus opened the door, and the crowd seemed to part like the world itself knew what was coming. He walked through the cafeteria, eyes locked on Kiera. Every step echoed. Every student fell silent. He stopped in front of his daughter's table and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You okay, baby?" She nodded shakily, tears threatening to spill. "You came back. I told you. 1 hour." The door slammed open behind him. Agents entered, weapons holstered but visible, their presence heavy. The lead agent's voice rang out. Mrs. Evelyn Daly, Principal Graham Wexler, by order of the United States Department of Education and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, you are required to accompany us for questioning regarding civil rights violations and misuse of federal funds. Gasps filled the room. Mrs. Daly's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Wexler's face drained of color. There must be a mistake, Wexler stammered. This is a private, federally funded. Marcus interrupted quietly. You don't get to hide behind that word anymore. Daly looked at him, trembling. You're just a parent. Marcus stepped closer, voice low but lethal. No, Mrs. Daly. I'm Marcus Reed, Deputy Secretary of Education. And you just assaulted my daughter on federal property. The cafeteria exploded with murmurs. Students turned. Phones lifted. The world was watching. Daly collapsed into a chair. Oh my God. Marcus nodded once to the agents. Read them their rights. And as the handcuffs clicked around Mrs. Daly's wrists, Kiera finally smiled through her tears. The same woman who had made her feel invisible was now the center of every lens. Justice wasn't slow today. Justice walked in at lunchtime. The moment the handcuffs snapped around Mrs. Daly's wrists, silence flooded the cafeteria. Forks froze midair. Phones trembled in hands. Dozens of privileged faces stared at the woman who had ruled this room for years, now pale, shaking, and whispering, "This can't be happening." Principal Wexler tried to find his voice. Agents, please, there's a misunderstanding. He stepped forward, but an agent blocked him, badge gleaming. Sir, step back. You're under federal investigation for civil rights violations and misuse of federal funds. You'll come with us now. Students gasped. A few teachers started to cry quietly. For the first time, the cafeteria, the one that had divided children by invisible lines, felt like it belonged to no one. Marcus Reed stood still in the center, his phone still recording, Kiera by his side. The agents did their work quickly, confiscating files, seizing computers, securing evidence. It was controlled chaos, professional, methodical, unstoppable. Mrs. Daly's voice cracked. You can't arrest me in front of the children. My husband is on the board. He'll have your jobs. The lead agent didn't flinch. Ma'am, your husband's position won't change federal law. He gestured to another agent. Escort her out. As they led her past the tables, every student watched. Some whispered, "Is this real?" Others began recording again, but this time, the story had changed. The bully wasn't in charge anymore. Justice had entered the frame. Principal Wexler sputtered as two agents approached him. You don't understand. This school is private property. You have no jurisdiction here. Marcus turned to him slowly. You receive Title IV funding, Principal Wexler. Federal money. Federal oversight. My office signs those checks. He took a step closer. You built segregation with taxpayer dollars. The words hit like hammers. Wexler's shoulders slumped. His voice fell to a whisper. I didn't know what Daly was doing. Oh, you knew, Marcus said. You watched it happen. You defended her. You called my daughter a disruption. He pointed toward the corner where Kiera and the other kids had Saturday. You let children eat by the trash because it made donors comfortable. An agent handed Marcus a small device. Sir, the live broadcast is ready. Media outlets are streaming now. Marcus nodded, then looked around the cafeteria. Students, he said loudly. You've lived in this system every day. Some of you laughed. Some stayed silent. Some of you were victims. Today, you will see what accountability looks like. He motioned for the agents to bring in a portable monitor. They plugged in a drive. On the giant cafeteria screen, the video Marcus had recorded began to play. Every face turned toward it. Mrs. Daly's voice echoed across the room, cruel and clear. These tables are for real families, not charity cases. You people should be grateful we let you in at all. The footage continued. Kiera's tray hitting the floor, the slap, the humiliation, the laughter. No one looked away now. Not even the teachers who had once pretended not to see. Some of the white students at the premium tables covered their mouths, shame blooming on their faces. Others hung their heads, realizing their laughter had been captured too. By the time the video ended, half the cafeteria was in tears. Mrs. Daly trembled. You can't do this. Marcus turned toward her. I didn't do this. You did. You wrote your own story, and I just hit record. An agent leaned toward Marcus. Sir, the DOJ wants you outside in 10 for the press briefing. He nodded, then faced the students one last time. You've been told this school stands for excellence. But excellence means nothing without equality. And after today, the world will know what kind of excellence Ashford Hills really practiced. He took Kiera's hand. Her fingers were still trembling, but her grip was steady. Together, they walked toward the doors. Every step felt like reclaiming something stolen. As they passed, some students whispered apologies. A girl Kiera had never met whispered, "I'm sorry we didn't say anything." Kiera nodded softly. "You can say something now." Outside, the school grounds had transformed into a media battlefield. Cameras, reporters, flashing lights. The helicopter still hovered above the field. News vans lined the street. The agents guided Marcus through the crowd to the steps where microphones waited. One reporter shouted, "Mr. Reed, is it true your daughter was targeted because of race?" Marcus looked out over the flashing lights. "Yes," he said plainly. "My daughter and many others. Segregated by policy. Abused by adults who hid behind words like tradition and donation." Another reporter called. "And who are you exactly, sir?" Marcus straightened. "I'm Marcus Reed, Deputy Secretary of Education. And from this moment forward, every federal dollar that touches this school is frozen until justice is served." The crowd erupted. Microphones shot forward. Cameras zoomed in. Inside the building, agents escorted Wexler and Daly out the front doors in handcuffs. Students pressed against the windows, watching their so-called leaders fall from power. Kiera stood beside her father, the sunlight finally touching her face. She wasn't the invisible girl anymore. She wasn't the corner seat. Reporters turned their cameras on her. "Kiera," one asked, "how does it feel to see justice today?" She looked up at her father, then back at the cameras. Her voice was small, but clear. "It feels like breathing again." Marcus put his arm around her shoulder. "And this is only the beginning." Behind them, agents carried out boxes of files, computers, and hard drives, the skeletons of a system finally exposed. The school that had once silenced voices now echoed with one undeniable truth. The powerless weren't powerless anymore. By sunrise the next morning, Ashford Hills wasn't a school anymore. It was a headline. Breaking news: Deputy Secretary of Education exposes racial segregation at elite private school. Live, federal agents raid Ashford Hills Academy after viral video sparks outrage. Every network ran the story. Clips of Mrs. Daly shouting, "You people," looped on national television. Parents flooded the school's voicemail demanding answers. Former students started sharing their own stories, quiet posts that began with, "This happened to me too." Inside her small dorm room, Kiera scrolled through messages she'd never expected to see. "You're brave. I wish I'd spoken up. Because of you, my school's changing policies." Her name was trending, but she didn't feel famous. She felt exposed. The world finally saw her pain, but it was a wound still healing. Downstairs, Marcus sat at the dining table, phone buzzing every minute. Reporters, lawyers, activists, even senators. He ignored most of them. His focus was on one call, the Department of Justice briefing scheduled in 15 minutes. His assistant's voice came through first. "Sir, the FBI has confirmed the arrests. Both Daly and Principal Wexler are being charged with multiple counts of civil rights violations and misappropriation of federal funds." Marcus's expression didn't change. "Good. Proceed with a full audit. Every dollar, every grant, every check that touched that school." "Yes, sir. And the press wants a statement." "They'll get one when the investigation is complete," Marcus interrupted. "No distractions. This is bigger than one school." He ended the call and leaned back, staring at the family photo on the wall, his late wife smiling, Kiera on her lap. The memory hit like a soft punch. "You promised she'd never face the same battles you did." Marcus exhaled. "I'm keeping that promise now," he whispered. Meanwhile, at the local jail, Mrs. Daly sat behind a glass partition, her perfect hair undone, her voice trembling as she spoke to her lawyer. "They can't do this. I was protecting standards. My family gave millions to that school." Her lawyer didn't look sympathetic. "You assaulted a child, ma'am. On camera. The feds don't care about donations. They care about evidence." Daly's voice rose. "That man tricked me. If I'd known he was the deputy secretary." The lawyer cut her off. "You'd have acted differently?" "That's exactly the problem." In another holding room, Wexler stared at his reflection in the two-way glass. His career, reputation, and future all gone. He muttered to himself, "It wasn't supposed to get this far." It was just tradition. Outside the jail, protesters gathered. Some held signs that said justice for Kiera. Others chanted, "In school segregation now." Cameras captured every second. By noon, the White House had released a statement. The Department of Education and the Department of Justice have initiated a joint task force to ensure that no federally funded school practices discrimination in any form. They called it the Reed Initiative. That evening, Marcus sat with Kiera on the couch. She leaned against him, the sunflower from his lunch bag now pressed inside a book on the coffee table. "Dad," she said quietly, "I didn't want people to know what happened. Now everyone knows." Marcus put an arm around her. "I know, baby. But silence only helps the people who hurt you. Speaking up helps the ones who come next." Kiera nodded slowly. "Are they going to jail?" "Yes," Marcus said. "And more people might follow. We're opening investigations into other schools too." Kiera hesitated. "What about my friends? They're scared to go back." "They won't have to," Marcus said. "Ashford Hills will be under federal control until it's rebuilt. New leadership, new rules, real equality." Kiera's eyes filled with tears. "You really did it." "No," Marcus said softly. "We did it. You were brave enough to live through it." Later that night, Kiera posted her first public message. "To anyone who's ever been told they don't belong, you do. Don't let anyone make you small so they can feel big. Speak up. Change starts with one voice." Within hours, the post had over 1 million shares. Students from across the country began posting their own stories under the hashtag lunchroomjustice. By the end of the week, dozens of schools had been reported for similar behavior. The FBI's inbox flooded. The movement had begun. And in the quiet of their home, Marcus finally smiled. Not the smile of victory, but of purpose. He looked at his daughter and said, "They tried to bury you, Kiera. They didn't know you were a seed." 6 months later, the courthouse steps looked like a movie set. Reporters packed the sidewalk, microphones outstretched, cameras flashing in the morning light. Headlines screamed across every network. "Ashford Hills trial begins. National attention on historic civil rights case." Marcus Reed stood on those steps in a black suit, calm and steady. Beside him, Kiera held his hand, now taller, her posture stronger. She wasn't the trembling girl from the cafeteria anymore. She was a symbol, a movement. Inside, the air buzzed with tension. At the front of the courtroom sat Mrs. Evelyn Daly, hands shaking, face pale under fluorescent lights. Gone was the flawless smile and the expensive jewelry. Her wrists were bare now. Her arrogance had been replaced with something raw, fear. Next to her sat Principal Graham Wexler, avoiding her gaze. Both faced multiple federal charges: assault, discrimination, civil rights violations, and fraud. The prosecutor, Sandra Williams, rose. A black woman in her 50s, known nationwide for fighting institutional injustice. She addressed the jury with quiet fire. "Ladies and gentlemen, this case isn't about a single act of cruelty. It's about a system, a culture, that told children of color they were worth less, that their seats, their voices, and even their dignity were conditional. Today, we prove that no child should ever eat lunch under the shadow of shame." The first witness called, Kiera Reed. She walked to the stand, her hair neatly braided, her hands folded tight. The courtroom stilled. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but everyone watching the news feeds outside would later see the artist's sketch, her small frame, her brave eyes. "Kiera," the prosecutor said gently, "can you tell the court what happened that day?" Kiera nodded. "Mrs. Daly grabbed my arm because I sat at a table in the middle of the cafeteria. She said those tables were for real families." The prosecutor leaned in. "What did she mean by that?" Kiera swallowed. "She meant white families. Families with money. She said people like me should be grateful to even be there." A murmur spread across the courtroom. Daly shifted in her seat, face stiff. "And how did that make you feel?" Kiera's voice trembled but stayed clear. "Like I didn't matter. Like my skin decided where I was allowed to sit." Sandra nodded. "Did any teachers help you?" "No," Kiera said softly. "They watched. They all watched." The prosecutor let the silence hang. Then she turned to the jury. "That's what silence does. It builds systems that thrive on fear." When the defense attorney stood, his tone was cautious. "Miss Reed, Mrs. Daly claims she was following school policy. Do you believe that's true?" Kiera looked him in the eye. If hurting kids was policy, then the policy was wrong. Even the judge paused at that. Next, witness after witness took the stand. Students, teachers, janitors, parents. Each story added a new brick to the mountain of guilt. One Latino boy, Miguel, told how he'd been denied water during lunch. A teacher testified that Wexler had told her to remember who paid the bills. When the prosecution finally played Marcus's video on the courtroom screen, no one looked away. The slap, the laughter, the phrase, "you people," the sound of Kiera's quiet sobs. It played like a haunting truth that could never again be ignored. Daly's lawyer tried to argue she was upholding tradition. The judge interrupted him sharply. Segregation is not tradition. It's a crime. When Marcus took the stand, his words came measured, precise. I've spent my career studying how prejudice hides behind policy. But this time, it wasn't abstract. It was my daughter, my child. Her pain made the data personal. The defense tried to twist his authority. Mr. Reed, you used your government position for personal revenge, didn't you? Marcus didn't flinch. No, I used my position for justice. The only difference is this time, justice had a name, Kiera. The jury needed only 4 hours. The verdict, guilty on all counts. Daly gasped. Wexler bowed his head, tears streaking his cheeks. The judge's voice was clear and final. Mrs. Daly, you are sentenced to 5 years in federal prison and a lifetime ban from educational work. Mr. Wexler, 3 years. Both of you will pay restitution to the affected students. Gasps. Then silence. Marcus closed his eyes for one long breath. Kiera squeezed his hand. When he opened them again, he saw reporters pushing forward through the crowd. But before he spoke to them, he turned to Kiera. Are you okay? He asked quietly. Kiera nodded, tears glistening. It's over. He shook his head gently. No, baby. It's beginning. Outside the courthouse, chants rose. #LunchroomJustice banners waved. Students from across the country filled the square, shouting her name. Kiera, Kiera. For the first time, she didn't shrink from it. She stood tall, looked into the cameras, and said, this isn't just about me. It's about every kid who ever sat alone because of who they are. We're not sitting in corners anymore. The crowd roared. That night, the story dominated the world. Politicians quoted her. Schools across the nation announced internal investigations. The Reed Initiative grew into law, federal oversight for every private school receiving federal funds. And in the quiet of their home, Marcus and Kiera watched the news fade into commercials. He turned to her and smiled. You changed the world today. Kiera smiled back. You did too. 3 years later, sunlight streamed through the rebuilt cafeteria of Ashford Hills Academy. Gone were the premium tables and dim corners. The room was open, bright, alive with chatter. Students of every background sat together, laughing, trading snacks, sharing stories like equals. On the wall above the entrance hung a bronze plaque. The Maya Reed Unity Hall, dedicated to those who turned pain into purpose. At the center of it all stood Kiera Reed, 15 now, confident, radiant in her blue graduation gown. Her father stood in the front row, tears hidden behind a proud smile. When the principal, Dr. Jennifer Washington, the school's new leader, stepped to the podium, the crowd rose in applause. Today, she began, Ashford Hills graduates a new generation. But we don't just celebrate academic success. We celebrate change. This school was reborn from courage, courage that began with one girl and her father. She gestured toward Kiera. Please welcome our valedictorian, Kiera Reed. The gym thundered with cheers. Kiera walked to the microphone, sunlight catching the sunflower pin on her robe, a symbol of her mother, her roots, and the promise she'd kept alive. She took a deep breath. 3 years ago, she began, I was 12 years old and afraid to sit at a lunch table. I thought if I stayed quiet, things would get better. But silence didn't protect me. It protected the people hurting me. Her voice grew stronger. That day, my dad came to bring me lunch. He saw what silence had built, a system that punished kids for being different. He didn't yell. He didn't fight. He told the truth. And the truth tore down walls that had stood for decades. Parents and students listened in stillness. Kiera's words carried more than memory. They carried history. Mrs. Daly once told me I didn't belong. She said people like me were lucky to be allowed inside. But she was wrong. Every child belongs wherever learning happens. No skin color, no zip code, no bank account changes that. Applause rippled through the gym, rising like a wave. Kiera smiled, but she wasn't done. My father always says, power means nothing if it doesn't protect the powerless. So we used our story to protect others. Together, we built something bigger than punishment. We built prevention. A slide flashed on the screen behind her. The Read Initiative Maya's Law National Impact. Since Maya's law passed, she continued, over 3,000 schools have been investigated for hidden discrimination. Hundreds changed their systems. Thousands of students feel seen for the first time. That's not politics. That's progress. Her eyes found her father's. Dad, you taught me that justice isn't revenge, it's repair. You didn't just save me. You changed the country for kids who'll never know our names. Marcus's eyes glistened. He stood with the crowd as they erupted again. Cameras flashed. When the applause settled, Kiera's tone softened. To every student who's ever eaten alone because of who they are, listen to me. You are not invisible. You are not less. The world may try to shrink you, but you are more powerful than the people who underestimate you. You belong here. Everywhere. The audience rose to their feet, teachers crying, parents cheering, students chanting her name. Later, as the ceremony ended, reporters crowded near the exit. A journalist asked, Kiera, what's next for you? Kiera smiled. I'm going to Harvard next fall to study education policy. I want to make sure no child ever has to go through what I did. Marcus joined her, placing a hand on her shoulder. And I'm going to make sure she never fights alone. Outside, the media lights shimmered like dawn. Kiera stood with her father in front of the school's new sign, one that read Ashford Hills Academy, a place for every child. Remember when I said it was just beginning? Marcus asked. Kiera nodded. It still is. They walked toward the waiting car, the crowd's applause fading behind them. The world had changed, but there was more to do, more voices to lift, more walls to break, more children to protect. As they drove past the school, Kiera looked out the window at the laughing students, the unity, the sunlight on the glass. Dad, she said softly, do you think Mom would be proud? Marcus smiled. She'd be proud of both of us. You turned pain into power, Kiera. That's her legacy, and yours. Kiera reached into her bag and pulled out a small sunflower. She placed it on the dashboard. Then let's keep growing. The car disappeared down the road, heading toward whatever came next, toward new battles, new victories, new generations who would never know what it meant to eat in the shadows. Because a father brought lunch. Because a daughter spoke truth. Because together, they turned injustice into law.